Let's go ahead and, whoops, that's not the way to hold a gavel. I think I know how to do it by now. Call to order at 4:00 p.m. Cool, right on time. And the first thing we have up, it should be minutes. Minutes from last week, they were in your packet. Any recommendations for adjustments, corrections, anything like that? Oh, I need to start recording. And we're live on. Okay, so any, I don't even know who that is. Any adjustments to the minutes? All right, then. The minutes are approved. I'm already out of order because I need to, oh my gosh, I'm incredibly out of order. Before we proceed further, I'd like to acknowledge that our college is located on the native land of the Hahamongna tribe of the Tongva Nation. Please take a moment to remember those who came before us. I also want to declare that Black Lives Matter in the work that we do here at PCC and the work that we do in the Academic Senate, and not just in our work, in our lives. And then finally, I'd like to acknowledge that the Armenian community is continuing to hurt due to the genocide in that region. Okay. I look forward to a day when meetings have no reason to start out with acknowledgements other than maybe a land acknowledgement. And I think it's really clear that we're not there right now. Regarding public comment, pursuant to Executive Order N2920 dated on March 17, 2020 and signed by Governor Gavin Newsom that I sincerely hope he does not rescind. We are modifying the way that the public will participate in the Academic Senate meetings during the spring 2021 semester. As part of its response to the ongoing coronavirus outbreak, the Academic Senate provides members of the general public an opportunity to make comment on agenda items or items not on the agenda. And public comment can be submitted by email to academicsenate@pasadena.edu. Submissions will be read aloud in their entirety at the public meeting. Such submissions must be received prior to the start of the board meeting. The guidelines for the time and quantity of public comment remain in effect. Just going to double check my email. I didn't have any public comments earlier. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. Sorry, people seem to think I can handle a lot of things at a time, and sometimes I can, and sometimes I can't. And then the direct message to me, if you want to make that as a public comment right now, you would be welcome to. Okay. It was a recommendation to acknowledge AAPI solidarity. All right, standing in support of our Asian, American, and Pacific Islanders. Okay. I don't have an agenda in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I know what it is. We did the minutes, we did public comment. I don't think that I have any reports scheduled for today. I think maybe you have the agenda in front of you. I think the item on the next up is AP 7210. And so let me go ahead and share my screen. We did approve the minutes? Yes, we did. Thank you for double checking that. Actually, you know what? No, I need to go a little bit. I'm ahead of myself here. There's a couple of things that I want to point out here before we get to this. And so I'm going to just do this new share. Sorry about this. I had a plan, forgot the plan. I'm remembering the plan. We do have Academic Senate meeting norms that were approved at the beginning of this year. Actually, they were carried over. And I'm bringing these up because we're going to violate some of them, but then I want to remind you of some of them. Maybe violate some of them. I want to remind us of the idea of becoming familiar with materials before we arrive, being attentive to behaviors that increase engagement, and it's really becoming familiar with materials before we arrive. I'm not sure that I'm pretty sure you've all read 7210 by now. I'm not sure that it's been evident in the other APs that we may have seen in recent meetings that that folks aren't seeing it for the first time during a Senate meeting. And just a reminder that it was a norm that we're prepared to respect other people's time. Being efficient, effective, and on task. Remain focused on the agenda, allow adequate time for others to voice their opinions and making comments succinct. We have had several comments were made, I think last year, to the effect that we want to hear a variety of voices in the academic senate. And so what I'm just going to say is that if yours is a voice that we don't hear often, then yours is, we want you to jump in. Feel free to jump in early. Everybody has a right to speak here. I'm not trying to say anything to the contrary. Just want to invite voices that we don't often hear to chime in as well. And then one that's not on here, but is in our bylaws. Oh, well, okay. So it's a little bit here. Report out to our constituent groups after each meeting. In our bylaws, there's an expectation, I believe it's in our bylaws, that our academic senate representatives represent their divisions, right? I'm not saying that you're not doing it. I'm just reminding us of some norms and expectations. And what that means is a couple of things. I mean, your divisions have entrusted you to represent them, right? So there are times where you need to speak on their behalf, not knowing exactly what their positions are. But I just want to remind all of us that when anybody in this space speaks, except for the executive committee, we represent the faculty at large. Whenever any of the other senators speak, they are not necessarily representing their own views. They are representing the views of their division. And when they vote, they should be doing so representing the views of their division. And I say that because not all the things that we discuss are comfortable to talk about. And I want to make sure that everybody has a shared understanding that a view may be personal, a view may represent a division. And I hope that that gives people the strength to say what they need to say. Okay. I can't, yeah. Okay. I am going to now get to AP 7210. And then when I started with the norms, I said we're going to maybe violate some. I didn't mean the norms. We may violate some of Robert's rules of order. And I'll tell you what I mean. The Brown Act is the law that requires us, if we have a vote, to make it a roll call vote because we're having a teleconference meeting, right? Robert's Rules of Order is the one that tells me when we have to have a vote and when we can do unanimous consent. And I was so adhered to Robert's Rules of Order and have been, or tried to be for the last year and a half or however long I've been doing this, that I think I let it get in our way last time, probably in meetings before that, right? So I'm going to be a little bit looser with Robert's Rules of Order. There's no law that says we have to follow it. It is in our bylaws that we follow Robert's Rules of Order, but I think that it can serve to impede discussion. I think that strict adherence in this setting can just be a time suck. So I'm going to try to find a middle ground between order and streamlining stuff. You'd think I'd have it figured out by now, having meetings over a year on Zoom, but I'm still learning as well. Anyway, folks, we have in front of us AP 7210. Lyman.
Yeah, that towards the what you were just saying there, are we dispensing with the where we stop every 5 minutes to say we're out of time and need to put up more time?
Yeah, there's actually not a time limit for this particular topic today.
Awesome.
And that's actually why I didn't have any times during the last agenda. But yeah, I think that kind of rolls into it. But I'm still going to request that we raise our hands. And as a matter of fact, there's been a request made by the folks who keep track of all this stuff for us that if somebody makes a motion or a second, if you just please give your name as well as I move that. I've tried to kind of, make sure that I acknowledge the names so that the folks keeping notes can follow, but the request has been made that y'all say your own names. And I don't know why it didn't occur to me a year ago to have y'all say your own names. And it didn't even occur to me now. Someone had to bring it up to me. Anyway, folks, the history of our where we are with this AP 7210 is that we have approved the introduction. We have approved section 1. We have approved section 4 and 6 and 7. So we're not going to look at, actually, I was about to say something that's not true. I was going to say we're not going to look at any of that right now, but we are. The reason we're going to look at it is I want to let you know of a change that I didn't think to make in bold on the summary of edits, but I looked and there were actually 2 occurrences of he, she in the document. And so while we have this is section 6, while we have already approved section 6, I'm recommending that we remove he, she, they. And since this is talking about the equal opportunity employment representative, why don't we just say the representative, right? Going by a senator's suggestion last week. And then the other one was one that I didn't want to do because I didn't want to say that person. Then I realized, well, that individual works. So if a person from outside the college was added to the hiring committee, that individual may be invited to. So we took out, I took out the he, she, they. It's up to you to back that. So the first thing I want to do is ask, does anybody want to make a motion to, in section 6, replace he, she, they by the representative?
I move to support.
Cool. What's your name, sir?
And my name is Brian Wilbur.
Got it. Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that. Israel.
Cool. Any discussion? Can we just say we're good with it? All right. Then we're going to approve that by unanimous consent. And folks, if we're doing unanimous consent and if I go a little fast and you have a problem with it, just verbalize it. Unmute yourself, jump in, we'll backtrack, okay? And we haven't gotten to section 8 yet. I don't know if Bob Blazinski is going to be here today. He had said that if he was able to rearrange his calendar, he would be, and I don't see him here. So I'm going to go to section 8 right now. We'll get to section 3 in just a moment. I want to get to section 8 because after last meeting, I I sent an email to Dr. Androgenis asking her about this scores ranking and the at least 2 business. And I'm going to find her email because she said I can quote her. But she gave me some information that I think is important for you to know. What you do with it is up to you, but it's important for you to know. I'm recommending, there it is. I'm recommending some language based on some concerns that were brought up in here. And the language that I'm recommending is right here. Committees should only send forward individuals that they agree would be acceptable. Right? There was this idea of maybe committees being coerced to forward 3 candidates when they don't want to send 3 candidates. These words right here are a direct quote from Erica's email to me. I copy pasted. Committees should only send forward individuals they agree would be acceptable. Okay. And then right here, this is also her recommendation that I think fits with what we talked about. If circumstances warrant, the committee can recommend a reasonable number of candidates for the final interview. Okay, this is a sub point. It does still say she still wants the at least 2, but I think this protects us. And then this clause here about the specified number and written justification doesn't lock you into necessarily absolutely having to send 3 if 3 are not acceptable. Now, this ranked list with scores. I've marked it out, and this is what she said that I can quote. I don't want to know the ranking because I do not take it into account. I assume that all candidates advanced to me are acceptable and I choose the best candidate. I also do not review the scores. I rely on the area VP and the hiring dean to provide context for the finalists. The scores are not meaningful outside of the committee meeting in which they were compiled. That's our superintendent's president's view on rankings and scores. Lyman.
Could you that last bit again about the who she confers with there?
I rely on the area VP and the hiring dean.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So, any discussion here?
I have a question. This is John Tyberg. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hands went up, Mark, and then I think it was Lyman, but then John can go.
It was mentioned before, it's a ditto that this president uses resources, measurements, evaluates according to her accessible resources, her selective resources. So I think leaving those in there, leaving as many resources will create the ideal selection. So let's lay it out there for every president, for the presidents to come and give as many resources as possible. But if we're going to delete these, I disagree with that. I think there should be even more than this. Let's list those resources.
So then the idea being that like, it's up to her. If she doesn't want to look at them, that's on her, but maybe a future president will.
Absolutely.
Okay. Lyman.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If we should leave in the rank scores, you know, and then if the president superintendent decides to not pay attention to that, that's their want, their prerogative. Thank you.
Yep. John.
I agree with Lyman, and or we could have if we could have something in there like the hiring dean should relate the ranking to the president. I don't know if that's possible.
I'm not sure it's for us to direct administrators to do certain actions.
Mm-hmm.
One hope that the dean is on board with the rest of the committee.
Veronica.
Yeah, so as I was hearing you guys talk, I was thinking, yes, this does do that, right? It actually provides, even if the president's not looking at it, hopefully it provides clarity for the deans to present the vision of the will of the hiring committee. So it gives them kind of a nice summary of what was thought, so they can go in there and represent the committee pretty well if they choose to use it, but it's there for them to use then.
Okay. So what I've done is I've unstricken that. There's this other language in here that I included. You can see that it's underlined. And then Susan, you raised your hand, and then it looks like we have Donna.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, I agree with the discussion. I would like to leave it in there. And our current president is taking input from these other 2 individuals, but looking towards the end of this process in sections 8 and 9, there isn't a note that appears there that input will be taken by the president from these individuals. So if that's not included, presidents going forward into the future may feel that they don't need to take input from the hiring dean or the vice president, which that may be something we want to think about also.
Again, I don't think that we can direct somebody else to take input from somebody else. I mean, this is, if you want to come up with language, then we can. But what I was going to say before that comment was, it sounds like what I'm hearing is like comments in support of unstriking, right? And I don't know if it's time to approve this or move on. If we're not ready to approve section 8 right now, just tell me we're going to move to a different section, because I'm not going to lose the meeting over section 8 right now. So what's going to happen right now, I see that there are hands up, but what's going to happen right now is either somebody's going to make a motion to approve section 8, or we're going to move on to a different section. Brian is a new hand.
This is the Senate checks executive power. The executive has a role, and that is to hire. And I think that this is as close as we're going to get to a compromise. So I would move that we bring it to a vote. And my name is Brian Wilbur.
Okay, so you're moving to approve section 8 as is. Okay.
I second. This is Mark Keen.
Okay, thank you. And then because their hands were up and still are up,
Sorry, guys.
but I'm not sure in what order, Donna and then Lyman.
Well, I had two things. One was I was asking, I wanted clarification. When we say scores, or when we're talking about including scores, what are we exactly talking about? Are we saying
After all the interviews, when all the candidates are scored, and then you're figuring out who to send to the president, right?
but are you saying like every candidate would just get one score? So all the committees coming together and you're somehow averaging or somehow getting that score?
It's the committee score for each individual, or for each candidate that they're sending
Okay,
forward.
so I'm trying to think if every time we accumulated all those just for one, but I'll pass that. Okay.
They're the scores by which the committee determines the rank of the individuals that they want to send up, right?
Okay.
There's a scores at the end.
And then two, in G1, I think that really changes the whole meaning of it, and what is a reasonable number? And I don't think that says that we don't have to send, I mean, I think it totally changes what G1 used to say.
Well, okay, committees only send forward individuals they agree would be acceptable, and then they can provide written justification if there's not the specified number of candidates. Those are the things that do it. To me, the reasonable number, it could be more or it could be fewer than the three that would be expected.
The reasonable is sort of ambiguous.
We can take out reasonable.
No problem.
I mean, I really don't want to get stuck on like something like that. I think that the protections are in here. Lyman?
So two things. The first is I just want to check on something. I'm fairly certain that the answer to this is no, but I just want to make sure, and not that I am accusing anyone of ever wanting to do this, but if there's no way that a superintendent president could ever decide to hire someone that wasn't listed, could they?
No.
Okay, good. That's what I thought. And so my other thing I'd like to say, getting ready to vote on this, is that there's no way that we can ever have, no matter how many clauses we put in this AP 7210, we can't guarantee that the will of the committee is going to prevail. So we need to have some sort of faith in the system. And to me, I think we have some reasonable protections here that we will be heard and considered. And we have to accept the fact that there is no perfect system, and that it seems desirable that we should get something approved and written down. And to me, this is probably for this section is probably about as good as we're going to get it.
All right, thank you, Brian.
I just reiterate that we trust our president to do right by us, and I'm sure our president trusts us to do right by whoever the president is. And so for that reason, I think that this is as good a compromise as we can get. And again, I'll again promote that we go to a vote on this.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a call to question. So actually, I'm not going to take it as a call to question because that requires
Call the question. I call it to question.
No,
I don't call it to question. Never mind.
Requires a vote. All in favor, or not all in favor? Yeah, I wish. I wish we could just do all in favor. Can we approve section 8 by unanimous consent? The motion is on the floor. It's been seconded. If there are any objections, make them known now. Lyman, is that an objection to unanimous consent vote to approve section 8?
Yes, not because I wouldn't vote to approve it, but I think should be a roll call. This is an important thing, and we should be. I know it shouldn't take that long, but this, if we're going to do this one, I think should be a roll call.
Dr. Lopez, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay. Can you repeat what the motion is and what a yay means and what a nay means?
I sure can. A yay is to approve section 8. The motion is to approve section 8 of this document, and a yes vote would be to approve, and a no vote would be not to approve.
Thank you. Okay. So, Richard Allen.
Nope. Move on. I'm sorry. I'm not voting for him. I'm saying he's not here.
Got you. I'm going to skip through those who are not here. Bernardo.
Abstain.
Bauer.
Yes.
Castro.
Yes.
Chafee.
Yes.
Constantine.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
You said abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you. Okay. Indoor. Big. Brancoso.
Yes.
Foster.
Yes.
Garson. Hernandez Henderson. Jaramillo.
Yes.
Jerome.
Yes.
Johansson.
Yes.
Keen.
Yes.
Larson. Leon.
Yes.
Lopez. Yes. Luck.
Yes.
Melnaric.
Aye.
Nordstrom.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Rigon.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Ruiz.
Yes.
Sabata. Serapian.
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Stoddard.
Yes.
Tyberg.
Abstain.
Vendrasco.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Wilbur.
Yes.
Winter.
Yes.
We have 3 abstentions and the rest are yeses.
That motion carries. We are moving on to, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. We are moving on to section 3. Or I should say back to section 3. Before we get into, wait, is it section 3? Or is it section 2? I think it's section 3. Oh yeah, duh. Yeah, it's right in front of me. It's section 3. Before we get into that, we do have our student, is he still here? Yes, our student trustee is here. He came to the last meeting, he's here now. And he's here for one reason, really. Well, because I asked him here, but there's this idea of allowing students to serve on hiring committees. This is language that I came up with here. The committee may also include one or more student participants as appointed in consultation with associated students. Student involvement shall not include screening of applications. And the way the AP is written right now, there's no mention of students being on the hiring committees, but this would just make it clear, hey, it's a thing that can happen. So I'd just like to see if there is any discussion about this right here while our student trustee is in the room, because folks, this is here because of what he said during board meetings. And I think he said it once or twice. And I was in that position to say, hey, let's do it. And we're piloting it right now with the 3 hiring committees that are currently active. And I saw the order in which the hands came up, but I'm going to give David the floor first. Go ahead, David. Welcome.
All right. Can you all hear me well?
We can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Academic Senate. Thank you, Dr. Hennis, for inviting me. I just wanted to speak a little bit about this particular edit on the AP on academic employees. Thank you for allowing me to. So I believe back in October, our associated students put together a series of recommendations regarding their diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of those being that we believe that students should play a role in the hiring of faculty. That is a best practice that was recommended to us from the Chancellor's Office, as well as the Association of Chief Human Resources Officers. So naturally, we believe that we should try and see what that would look like here at PCC. Because even though we're only a single college district, this district hires and employs a lot of academic employees, as you all know, of course. So this isn't something that hasn't been comprehensively implemented at the college, but I do believe in terms of timing that now is the best time to start and see what that maybe looks like. I just want to thank you all, first of all, for considering this to the ad hoc committee and to Dr. Hennis. I think this is this would be a wonderful thing to implement at the college.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to have you here. Mark.
We are not the first community college here within our region to have our target market, our students here on our hiring board or even on this evaluative board. So it's the first step. We should have them deciding which faculty we have coming, which classified staff we have coming, which deans we are voted. Those students need to have their thumb on the vein of everything we do have. That's part of our governance. So I fully agree that we need to have students on this committee.
Cool. Dr. Bernardo.
Hi, yes, I was just wondering what the duties of the student participant would be on the hiring committee. Would they just be there as like a listener and observer giving feedback, or would they be like a voting member of the committee? Like what are we suggesting that this is?
We're not. We're not suggesting in particular. And it is intentionally vague. It is intentionally open. And the reason for that is just in the 3 hiring committees that are going on right now, where we place students, they're doing 3 different things. And, so it can be anything from like helping develop the domain of the interview questions to being in the interviews themselves, or maybe just being involved in the teaching demonstrations. Or any presentations that are given, because now I'm thinking about, some counseling positions don't necessarily maybe have a teaching component, but there's a presentation component, right? So it's designed to be vague for flexibility and something to be agreed upon between the student representative and the hiring committee itself. Okay, so I don't think that there's a one size fits all at all on this. Students have to be EEO trained to be on the hiring committees, and so the EEO training can be tailored according to what it is that they're going to be doing. But one thing is clear, and it's to me, and it's that due to the sensitive nature of what is in applications, that students are not involved in the screening of applications. They don't see the addresses of the adjunct professor that they just had or may have next semester, right? So there's that, and also the time involved in screening applications, right? We want to kind of find that middle ground. It's going to be, it's going to take some time, I think, to find out what that looks like. And this right now is just a pilot. Lyman.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how student participants would be chosen, selected.
Well, in the case of one particular hiring committee, it was, hey, we have a club like that on our camp, or we have a club in the same domain on our campus, and so let's tap that club and see if we have any people there. In another situation, it was, this position is targeting or it supports a certain group of students. Let's get that a member of that group of students or some representatives from that group of students. The associated students can either reach out on their own, like to the clubs, or they know people. And then, or it could be the people in the hiring community saying, hey, I have access to some students that may be willing to do this. But ultimately, it's kind of like what happens with the academic senate. The names are forwarded to, somehow forwarded in one way or another to the associated students who then have approval. Okay, Armia.
Yeah, quick question. It's kind of 1.5. One, I see that it reads as though it's optional. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and the other one real quick is, if I'm not hearing you correctly, AS has to, or maybe done correctly, AS has to approve the student. Did I miss that?
They are appointed by, in consultation with associated students.
So if the student is not on AS, right?
The student likely won't be on AS because they're only.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But it would have to go through AS.
Yes.
Okay.
David.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that. I just want to, I guess, clarify a bit. So associated students does have the jurisdiction for any student appointees for any task force, shared governance committee, or in this case, it would be not hiring committees, because associated students is the representative body for all students on campus.
And then, and yeah, okay. Thank you, Kyle.
Hi, I just want to give a quick example of how students were actually involved in my hiring process. As the band director, I was required, along with the other applicants, to come in and conduct the concert band in front of the entire panel. And then the band, I found out later, of course, then the band was basically polled and asked to give feedback on each of the candidates. So in an informal way, the students were involved in some aspect of my hiring. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Folks, at this point, I can see that there are other hands up. Is anybody in opposition to this? Does anybody have language that needs to be clarified or changed? Because if not, if these are just comments in support of, I really appreciate that you want to, but I'd like to move on. And if we're supportive of this, I'd like to. So Brian, you're waving your hand.
I'm supportive in a limited capacity. In what Professor Luck just mentioned is exactly how I can envision that. And I think that the language here needs to be more explicit about exactly what that role is. I know it's very open, but having a panel for a research talk, or having a group sit in on a teaching demonstration and then interviewing that panel of students by the interview committee makes perfectly good sense. I mean, what Professor Luck did for the band makes perfectly good sense, but it makes just as much sense for a physics hire. And I see that as a potential useful thing. But if that's what it is, then that's what we should state and be far more explicit about it.
Well, my issue with being explicit is that's not going to work for every hire. It's not going to work for every hiring committee. And so I don't want to draw a picture of what it looks like, because then if we have a hiring committee that's not doing that thing, then a student can't be participating. I want it to be open and vague, maybe to be hammered out later. Hey, these are the ways in which students have participated in the last 5 years. We've had, 75 hiring committees and they all seem to do the same thing. Well, then, okay. Right now, we don't know what it looks like. And so I don't think that I think I would caution against making it more specific, because I don't think that there is a one size fits all.
Well, of course, I look at the other end of it, where potentially associated students has maybe 2 members on the hiring committee and then 3 that are faculty. And I don't know if that's inappropriate or appropriate, but
no.
On the far end of the spectrum, right?
But that's not going to happen, because we have at least 4 or more full-time faculty members. I mean, the at least 5-person hiring committee of 4 faculty members and the chair of the committee, together with an additional EEO representative, that's not changing, right? These students aren't going to replace any faculty on the committee. At this point, what I'm going to do is just, if you want to come up with language, then do so over the next week. I want to move on to a different topic, which is really the point of the meeting today. And I've gotten it to the point where we only have 20 minutes left in the meeting today. I seriously thought that 8 and that thing were going to be quick. I'm still learning. I don't think, is someone speaking?
Yeah, it's Lyman. I just wanted to say, if in regards to what Brian said, there should be a limit to their participation, if for no other reason than you should probably talk to, or we should probably talk with the college council about this. If opening up the possibility of lawsuits from people who don't get hired if there are students who are voting on this sort of a thing. So I don't know what the legality of that. So
I appreciate that. I'm going to kill this topic right now, and if you want to, raise it in a week. About students participating on hiring committees. If there are thoughts you have, if there are language that you have, bring it up next week. Because what I really want to get to is this composition of the hiring committee. And I appreciate your time, David. If you want to show up next week, is he still here? Oh, well then fine. This idea here of setting aside a particular number of seats on the committee for particular groups. You all should have seen the legal opinion that was in the packet, as well as the statement from the ACCJC and several other college districts APs on hiring. And I will just say the language, this is language that was recommended by the legal counsel. Pursuant to Title V, the hiring committee shall include a diverse membership, which will bring a variety of perspectives to the assessment of applicant qualifications. In selecting committee members, the district should consider members from significantly underrepresented groups as defined by Title V, and not Ed Code, but Title V, in order to ensure diversity and support equal employment opportunities. I also want to remind folks that there is a clause here: the Vice President of Human Resources may reject the composition of the hiring committee for lack of inclusion or diversity. The hiring committee should include 4 or more full-time faculty members, at least 3 of whom are from the area or a related discipline. And we can have 1 outside member from the outside the division. So you know what the history is. I'm not going to go through it. I'm just going to ask what your comments are, folks. Ken.
Thank you. I like the language. I was looking at the language from the Academic Senate of California Community Colleges, and I like their language where it says that if the discipline expertise does not supply significant diversity for the committee, then the college may wish to supplement the discipline faculty with an additional representative who can provide greater diversity. And I'm wondering if it would pay to bring that language in here so that it adds a little bit more to this vague, we'll try to have a diverse committee statement.
Okay, do you have specific language?
That would be the specific language. Should I read it off again? It almost comes directly from their
okay,
document.
Maybe tell me where to put it.
Okay, where are you on the screen here? I'm sorry.
It should be in this
at
block.
the end of that paragraph, I think.
Okay. Do you want to include the no committee should ever sacrifice discipline expertise, or just if discipline expertise does not supply significant diversity?
I think we don't need to have that first part. Start with if the discipline expertise. If we keep it verbatim, except that instead of additional faculty representatives, we make it single instead of plural because of our own limit that's in there.
And then I would also recommend removing may wish to, and just say may.
May, yes.
Okay.
And I'm also not sure if we need and differing perspectives at the end, but I'm okay either way if anyone has a strong opinion on that.
Okay, so right now here, this is just, it's been a recommendation that was made. Bevel, what's up?
Yes, I know in our discussion before, there was mention of the ed code having implications on the makeup of the committee. So I was wondering if we strike as defined by section of the ed code, if it's possible, I'm not sure, if that would ultimately make our committees more ethnically diverse.
Striking here would mean, well, what does significantly underrepresented mean now? This is here to define this language of significantly underrepresented groups.
And based on the ed code,
I was corrected. It's Title V, not ed code. But the ed code,
does it categorize individuals from the African diaspora as significantly underrepresented?
not according to our numbers at PCC. After last meeting, I looked up our demographics. I looked at the, I found this and I sent it out to everybody. I'm just trying to, oh my gosh, what happened? Okay. It is here. And significantly underrepresented means that you have a category that is that's below 80% of the projected representation for that group in the job category in question. For African Americans on our in our full-time faculty, we have 8.61%. In Pasadena, it's 8.8%. In LA County, it's 9%. African American faculty are not, according to this definition, significantly underrepresented on our campus.
And I think that's where a lot of us as senators, that's the difficulty with the document. We do believe that we are significantly underrepresented, but based on the information here, you see, so it's not aligning. At the end of the day, we just want to make sure that the hiring committees are ethnically diverse.
Okay, I appreciate what you're saying. It doesn't matter how diverse the hiring committees are if the hiring pools are not diverse. It doesn't, to an extent, it doesn't matter who's doing the hiring.
And I would say, I would argue, not argue, I would just say vice versa. Even if the pools are diverse and you walk into the room and there's no one who you can relate to, then are we truly giving everyone, a fair shot at the job of being hired?
I hear what you're saying. Did you read the legal opinion that we received?
Yes, but it still doesn't make me feel as a senator that we are addressing the problem of a lack of ethnic diversity on hiring committees. I know right now we can't, I'm not sure if we could pull the data from the last hiring committees. I know it was a new thing that was being changed, correct?
Yes. Like this report detailing the diversity of members of all faculty hiring committees, that is new.
Yeah, so there's no way for us to look back and say, oh, here's proof that there were African people on these hiring committees.
I'd like to point out that the reason that the deans didn't say 3 and 2 is because they're aware that that there's a possibility of burning out our faculty if we're saying, hey, you have to serve on every hiring committee because we've written this into our AP.
And I understand that.
And I further, my experience is not that we are excluding people from hiring committees. My experience is that it's difficult to get people to volunteer for hiring committees. And what I would like to ask is, have you all asked all of the historically underrepresented folks in your areas if they're willing to serve on every hiring committee that we have?
Yes, I did bring this to the.
I asked the entire group.
Sorry.
And what we're talking about here with full-time faculty hiring is full-time faculty who are going to staff the hiring committees. Right. So I get that there's a sentiment, and there are people in this meeting who are like, yes, I will serve on every single committee. And that's great. I'd say you're unique. We sometimes have to cajole people into volunteering on hiring committees. Okay.
And
So
I just want to mention as well that in terms of the responsibility of full-time faculty, I think this clearly shows that some adjustments need to be made in terms of the commitment.
I hear you. You've raised that point before. It's kind of off topic, but I'm going to address it. We are expected to spend 5.5 hours a week in college service. Nowhere does it say that college service has to be on hiring committees. It can be on serving on other committees, the accreditation committee. It can be professional development facilitation. It can be a lot of different things, okay? If you want to specify that faculty have to serve on hiring committees, that is a contract issue, and that's something to take up with the FA, okay? And I don't mean to say our full-time faculty are shirking their duties. I'm saying they're busy doing other things and they don't necessarily have the time that it takes to devote to a hiring committee, which can be up to 40 hours of screening applications even before you get to the interviews, right? So there's that. I'm going to move on to Donna.
I actually have two things also. Again, so back to the AP. In part D, at the last sentence, it says, are you going back to the AP or no?
I don't even know what I'm sharing now. Oh,
you're sharing the spreadsheet still.
Okay,
not that I need to see it. I have it on my other computer. The last sentence in D, or D actually talks about at the end of every hiring cycle, the vice president, et cetera, is going to give us the data. But then the last sentence says the vice president can reject a hiring committee, which shouldn't that last sentence be in part C? Because it's about like the specific hiring committee. It's not like at the end of the hiring committee.
I moved it.
At the end of the cycle.
I've moved it.
And then is there, when in E, when we then all of a sudden say, okay, only one member could be from outside the division. I remember we had a public comment, I think it was maybe even from the physics department or something about smaller divisions, or maybe it was someone, it wasn't public comment. Does that allow for us to get the proper diversity is what I guess. Because that somewhat could contradict the, well, I guess we've taken those out.
Right. So at this point, I'm going to.
I take that back.
But well, I'm going to do it anyway. At this point, I'm going to point to what the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges says. No committee should ever sacrifice discipline expertise for the sake of a more diverse committee makeup. However, if you want to bring outside perspectives in, then you should be permitted to do so, right? So I don't want that to be lost. Armia.
I agree. I like the language from the California Community Colleges. However, and you don't have to go back to the slide, Nat, but I know we're going back and forth about significant numbers or whatever that language is. But a couple of things. I'm not sure if that reflects, I don't think that reflects the fact that there's 36 African-American full-time or Black full-time faculty in comparison with, other groups. It's like, yeah, it seems like it is not significant, but as a Black full-time faculty on campus, counseling is full-time and we are faculty. So just having that experience, and I just wanted to affirm Bevel, it does feel like there is a disparity, and just being one of the groups on campus, I just don't like the language of significant back and forth. I get it, it's Title V, and if we have to keep it, fine. Just had to get that off my chest. But I do like the California language, the California Community Colleges language, because in divisions, that diversity is not there. I'm sorry. We are not represented in every division on campus. So although there are 36 Black or African faculty that are full-time on campus, they are not in every discipline. So I like the idea of, requiring them to bring in faculty from other areas. Is it taxing? Yes. Is it a lot on Black faculty? Yes. But that's why we need to hire more. Just saying.
Okay, thank you. I will point out in the legal opinion, the use of numeric quotas to implement policies such as setting aside a specific number of slots for members of a certain racial or certain racial or ethnic groups has been found to be unconstitutional.
And the caste system is also.
No, Bevel, please do not interrupt. If you wish to be acknowledged, I ask that you please raise your hand. I have acknowledged you every time you have raised your hand. Veronica.
I just wanted to comment to Donna had mentioned the physics talk, and we had brought in this to division so that we could brought in if there were small divisions or small departments, I should say, or small disciplines that we could go within the full division to get a more diverse hiring committee. So that kind of helps with the disciplines that may not have as diverse of a faculty. So that's why we broadened it out to the full division, because then that helps with the adding of the diversity to the hiring committees.
Thank you.
Right. So by saying no more than one shall be from outside the division, right?
Yes, that was what I was saying.
Then we're not limiting it to a program. We're not limiting it to a discipline. And we may have smaller divisions, but even a small division is it's bigger, right? At this point, we just have a few minutes left. So what we're going to do is we're going to revisit this next meeting. And if it doesn't look like we are going to finish it next meeting, we will have another meeting 2 weeks from today, just like today, the reading circles for the first hour, Senate for the second hour. I am going to impose upon your time just a bit. We've had Leslie Tirapelli and Thea, well, Thea's here as an alternate, but they are also here for a particular reason. And we need to have this first read. So Thea and Leslie, I'll put it on the screen, but if you can briefly tell us why we're looking at 4105 and what it's about and why we aren't looking at an edited version.
Sure, and then also I'll have Thea pipe in if she thinks of anything that I'm not mentioning. So over this past year, the faculty committee for online learning and the campus committee have both been working on editing this particular AP. The AP is about, I'd say 10 years old at this point and desperately needs revision. There have been multiple changes to Title V over the course of this time. And actually there's some suggested edits that are going through right now, which we are certain will go through. Essentially, the biggest change in the more recent proposals is to ensure that synchronous instruction is included as part of the definition for distance education for California community colleges. So
sorry, I need you to repeat that. So did you just say that synchronous instruction is included in distance education by law?
Yes.
Okay.
So it already is synchronous. So the definition for distance education has been any instruction that is conducted either with a difference in time or distance. So it's time or distance, not time and distance.
Okay, yeah, you clarify. I needed to make sure that was clear.
Right. So synchronous instruction has always been under the umbrella of distance education. So the current language that's going through is just using the term synchronous instruction to make sure everybody is clear that synchronous instruction falls under the requirements, legal requirements for distance education, which means Title V regulations having to do with regular and effective contact. In particular, the fact that courses have to go through separate approval through CNI, and also the standards in terms of faculty selection.
And certification, right?
Right,
Okay.
right. So this particular document is a full rehaul, but in particular, what we were asked to do, and the reason why this has been kind of slipped in right now, is we want to make sure that it is very clear that any synchronous instruction that does occur falls under distance education and is bound to the requirements of distance education. So that's the first part. Thea, do you want to add to this?
No, I think that's good. You got it.
Okay, I see. So what you're talking about here is this fully online courses may have synchronous instructional components.
Correct.
That's the thing that's enveloping it. And the reason that it's being developed is because of state law?
Yeah, legally, synchronous instruction falls under distance education. This is just clarifying that it falls under it.
And folks, if you're not, if you don't know why I'm making that point, that was actually, I learned this here. And it was going to influence a conversation we were going to have next week. And now I understand that we're kind of bound to a particular definition that includes particular components, or that particular components fall under this particular definition.
And so back in March of this last year, we went to remote instruction. Remote instruction is different. Remote instruction is basically that bridge to get us through this time when we can't be with our students in person. So remote instruction is kind of like a quick fix. You weren't bound to all the laws and regulations and standards. But right before summer, the chancellor's office sent a memo stating that any courses from there on out must meet standard.
Okay, so we're bound by not this AP, we're bound by the governor and by legislation. Right. Okay.
Correct.
I just want to be really clear about what this AP means. Okay. I appreciate you for indulging my questions. I appreciate the Senate for sitting there while I ask them. Does anybody else have questions about this AP right now for our first read? And you know where this is going, right? This is a first read, and next week is our last scheduled meeting, right? If you recall, there were two other APs/BPs from last week that we're going to end up seeing next week. And then we're going to look at AP 7210. Would you all be okay with me scheduling a 3-hour meeting next week again? I see somebody just rubbing their eyes like that's the answer.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
We do. So what I'm going to do is I will schedule it for 3 hours next week, hoping that we can get through it all. Mm-hmm. But with the full knowledge that if we can't, we're meeting on the 26th. I think that's that's what date? The 24th? Yeah, the 24th. And it's not a matter of if you behave yourselves, but it's a matter of how efficiently we get through our stuff.
Matt, can I make one more point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we were also the federal definitions of distance education have also been recently changed. Okay. Those changes are reflected here. Thea and myself and the committee has been very careful to ensure that everything that we put in here is reflective of law. And we really want to make sure that that's known, that, we're not making it up. That if you have any questions, if it's appropriate, feel free to write to either Thea or myself during the week if you want something clarified or to understand where something's coming from.
And that absolutely is appropriate, folks. You can do that. And also, Thea has communicated to me that Mark Whitworth, president of the Faculty Association, does sit on the faculty distance education committee. And so there is that connection with the Faculty Association as well. Sylvia.
Yes, thank you. I do have a question. So
who will decide if a course is going to be asynchronous or synchronous? Is it
That's the conversation that we're going to have next week.
okay?
But I mean, it's a faculty matter, but it's also an instructional matter. But it won't be Leslie.
And to make sure that it's stated in this document, any working condition items, that means those are contractual items, are in the faculty contract. They will not be here in this AP. So anything having to do with work, workload, etc., those are contractual.
Got it. Thank you. And to kind of, you touched on this, and you reminded me, Sylvia, that I did want to mention this. So you kind of know what the substance of the conversation is going to be next week. I'll just write down some, or I will read to you some notes that I took down while I was in a meeting with the Vice President of Instruction last week. Moving forward, how do we determine what portion of a class gets to be asynchronous or synchronous? We need to weigh in on what protocols should be for that. We have a minimum standard for hybrid. We don't have that for synchronous versus asynchronous. Should faculty just get to choose from one instructor to the next? Or should there be some sort of kind of something uniform? The Senate needs to weigh in on how we're making that decision. Okay, so that's the request that has been made of us by the Vice President of Instruction. And so that's a conversation that we're absolutely going to have next week. I'm really glad you raised it because it reminded me of that. Okay, well, Leslie, thank you for sitting for the hour. I hope you found it as riveting as I did. And Thea, you evidently didn't have a choice, but we'll see you both again next week, I presume, for our second read. I promise you the meeting will be as interesting as this one was.
Thank you.
All right. I didn't ask for, on our agenda, I don't think I have any additional agenda items for, I think, what are obvious reasons, but are there any announcements? All right, then we are adjourned.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Matt.
Matt, do you have a minute?
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
I do. Thank you. I mean, you're welcome. I've forgotten what nicety protocols are.
Matt, I'm sorry about interrupting early on.
I don't think the apology is necessary, although I accept it and I understand.
Yeah, we're just trying to get it done, you know, as best as we can. My question, I did discuss the AP 7212.
Oh yeah, cool. Okay.
With the Adjunct Issues Committee.
Uh-huh.
So my question is, in terms of procedure, in terms of making recommendations to the AP, is it that I work with you to show you the recommended changes and then you bring it to the Senate for vote, or how does it work?
That's what it would be if we weren't at the end of the semester, at the end of my term. So everything you just said, absolutely, with Gina.
Okay, so that's work with her.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, frankly, it's not going to fit on next week's agenda or the week after if we have that meeting. It'll be something that the Senate can take up in fall.
Okay.
And so it'll be under her watch.
All right, I'll inform the committee members.
Perfect.
I would connect with you to find out what's the procedure.
Yeah, and you might consider connecting with I was going to say Miriam Altunji because she's on the Edit Policies Committee, but go with Gina. Because she'll route it to who it needs to go to. It needs to go to college exec. It needs to be looked at by HR because it's Chapter 7, right? Human Resources is over Chapter 7. We know it's Chapter 7 because it starts with the digit 7. So a lot of things will need to happen, and she'll have to learn as she goes as well. But
right. But even if we schedule a May 24th meeting, it's still
right, because the only reason we would schedule the May 24th meeting would be to continue our discussion on 7210.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen.